Hi everybody, Todd Dammit Kerns here once again. Today brought to you by fine folks at Dammit. Hey, I'm one of those folks. Well, I'm bringing you myself today. Ladies and gentlemen, today a very special guest, a good friend of mine. We played on countless sessions together, and just recently put out this. Isn't this cool? Vinyl. Makes it seem so real, isn't it? He's a very good friend of mine, a very talented man, plays with Ace Frehley, filled in for Pat Torpey, and with Mr. Big. He's played in a million different things. Black Swan with Jeff Pilson from Dokken and Foreigner, Robin McCauley from A Million Things, and Red Beach from Winger and Whitesnake. But this is a project we did together with Brandon Fields and Jeremy Asbrock. I hope you check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, Matt Starr. Yeah.
Alphabetical.
Ooh, there's announcements and everything.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
You look very. Looks very organized and like that's some sort of backdrop you've put together for yourself.
Yeah, they're shooting an episode of Hoarders on the other side.
No, that's happening here, dude.
Right.
This is Hoarders. Trust me.
Well, you're like, what is it? Not curb pickers, but something. They go around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going around to different abandoned lockers and getting stuff. Yeah,
Right.
Sounds about right. So
Yeah.
where are you? You've been spending a lot of the lockdown back east.
Yeah, we've been in Connecticut for a few months, and my wife and I are both from here, and it's been cool. It's been good. Yeah, I think if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have been like, I'm not going back, never.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But now with kids and with everything being mobile, it's like, as the record we did, I haven't seen you in like a year and a half yet. We've been amazing records. So
yeah, we've been on multiple projects together, yet we haven't seen each other in person. And well, like you say, almost a year and a half, probably. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So what did this 2020 do to you? Like, I know that you guys had a bunch of Ace stuff on the calendar or something, or would that all have just gotten wiped away at the time, or how?
Yeah. So 2020. Yeah. So
I know it's hard to look back now. I'm like, yeah.
Every story I have to add a year to. So 2 years, no, it was 3 years. Yeah. I think what it did was, like for a lot of people, it just makes you more introspective.
I know, right?
Think about how you're spending your time. And for me, and my wife was ahead of the curve on this, as she often is. It was like, if we're going to be away from family, deal with traffic, pay a lot of money and rent, et cetera, why are we doing that? And it's like, well, so, network and people, okay, we don't have that.
Yeah, you can't network. Yeah, you're networking online, so you may as well do that from almost anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it brought some clarity around that. And then for me, it just made me kind of double down on the remote recording and the coaching and these things that aren't dependent on anybody else except for me and who's up for it. So that's been good. And I realized, I turned 50 last year and I'm like, I'm pretty on top of the technology, like taking advantage of the new world,
I know.
Wow, I'm like I've got a couple remote businesses. So that's cool,
Yeah, you're one of the guys that turned me on to the whole idea of, I have always admired your hustle and your ability to kind of, it's like, when I invariably ask, who played drums on this? The answer is 9 times out of 10, Matt Starr. It's kind of like what I say. And I'm always like, wow, that guy gets around. Before I even met you, I was kind of like, wow, who knew? But it's one of those things that your ability to kind of be able to do a lot of things without it sort of, you've got it down to a science. And I hear you talk about it when you're doing your coaching thing all the time. And I'm like, yeah, he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. If you want to try this, just have 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's up to you, but
I'm way ahead of you on that. Yeah.
That's not part of my coaching, by the way.
Yeah. You just go out and have a couple children. Yeah.
Yeah. Start there. Scare yourself to death. And I think, I had to go through the discomfort of, like we want to be Jimmy Page in the silhouette, woo, and all that, and not talk and all that. And it's just, that's not it. It's not the
No.
world, you know, it's all
No.
about access, and it's about communicating, you know, and that you'd show your piece, part of your house, and I'll show part of my house in this goofy birdhouse I got. I don't know what to do with, but I think it's cool.
That's awesome.
Where normally you just get the stock photos and then some setup interview, and it's like, now it's like, hey, cool, yeah. And it's much more real for whatever that's worth. And
Totally.
you know, so yeah, I think I just kind of had to walk through like what my idea of a rock and roll guy is. And it's like, just be yourself and then leave it at that, you know?
It is funny. I just had a long conversation with Jay Bentley from Bad Religion, and it was really interesting to me because when I really think about like when I was a kid, you know, I would have been thrilled to have been in Bad Religion for 40 years. You know, the band's been together that long.
Right.
Inevitably, it's very rare that you sort of put a band together at 20, or in their case, like 15. And that's the same band you're in till you're an old man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Aerosmith, Kiss, take your pick of bands, that Cheap Trick, the bands that have been around, ZZ Top forever. You know, guys like you and me, our resumes read a lot longer because that's not quite the way it played out. The band I was in at 20 did not last, you know, 40 years. It's just not the way it goes. But when you take that away and you realize that you have to really love music and really love playing music and love the game, because it really can be, you know, I mean, there's a million negatives that someone could put in front of you, but if you're still the kind of person that goes, sounds good to me, and that's kind of how it was for me. I'm sure it was for you as well. When people point out all the negative things when you were young, you were probably like, where do I sign up? Let's do this. You know?
Right. Yeah. My parents are very supportive. In that, like, they would drive me to the drum store. My dad and I built a drum riser in the garage with a gong stand made out of PVC pipe. I mean, awesome.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they were scared shitless.
Of course.
You know,
yeah.
because all they knew was Mick Jagger. And if you're not Mick, then what are you going to do? Now we know there's, you know, tens of thousands of people that make this whole thing happen. Some, you know their names, some you don't.
Yeah.
And they're all doing fine. So I think it was scary for them, but you know, I lost my train of thought.
That happens to me all the time. No, but it actually brings me up a good point, because I really want to get down with your history, because, you know, it clearly your parents were supportive, having a father that, you know, because I you know, I'm in a similar boat. My parents were all game for us to learn how to play music. I don't think anybody really kind of said you should turn that into some sort of career, and I don't think anybody really thought of getting in a van with a bunch of your, you know, stoner friends and you know, traveling around as a career per se.
Right.
But if you know, clearly you had a family that was supportive of you playing the drums or learning music in general.
They submitted to my will. And I'm grateful they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my room was wall to wall Kiss, Maiden, Van Halen posters.
Sure.
And I remember what I was going to say was that at 4th of July picnic, we have a friend who's a dancer, a professional dancer. And so she had a friend from New York, and she was living in her car and this whole thing. So she's talking to my mom. My mom goes, I want you to talk to Matt. So she goes, I have friends that live in their cars, da 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 da. And I was like,
that sounds awesome.
that's cool. You know?
Yeah.
And my mom goes, so you still want to do music? And I go, yeah. And I realized, oh, this was supposed to dissuade me. Once it's really in your bones, if it's there's no getting around it. And I had my first band. We tried so hard, a band called The Flames, and we got played on local radio. We'd open up for nationals locally and had a demo deal with Atlantic. That's as far as we got.
Cool.
And it just fell apart. And I remember just being crushed. And I thought, I can't do this. I was like a broken heart, like I'd never experienced.
Sure. And
I'm like, I can't. And I remember talking to Jimmy Braylauer, who was our A&R guy, the VP at Atlantic. I go, I don't know if I can do it. And I was almost embarrassed to say that. And he goes, you know, just, you know, take some time.
Yeah.
And almost a week went by, and I was like, no, I'm doing this. Like, there's no getting out. And in that, I had never thought about it. I'm going to do it. But in that moment, I was like, well, what else am I going to do? I could do it. I love this too much. So in that moment, I just said, you know, I'm just all in. What are you going to do?
But there are a number of people, maybe more sane people than you and I, or what are you going to call them, like people who did have that happen to them and said, that's it, I'm going to go back to school and become a dentist or whatever it is. And they, they pursued that thing. And I've never considered that wrong. Like I've never been the guy that goes, he's so weak that he went and, it's like, no,
Right.
I understand, because it's tough. I mean, I think you've been through, enough ups and downs. I think you've stepped away from the game on occasion here and there, like all of us, just kind of like take a minute and reassess. Because I know you were that's what it's so interesting about when I actually dig into your career, because there's periods where you were singing, you were fronting a band, which I think is really, really cool when you kind of take a look at because people always give me that thing, like, are you a guitar player or a bass player or a singer? What are you? And I go, I kind of consider myself a musician. You know what I mean? I love music so much that I've always been that guy. When I would learn the Kiss songs, I would just learn everything. I loved the whole thing. And well, I couldn't learn all the guitar parts because I'm not that guy, but it says a lot about your investment in music, that you kind of were good to go no matter what hat you had to wear.
Yeah. And I had a thing where, my early 20s, first rehearsal with a band at 14, I learned an A chord. Then probably 6 months later, I was like, the G is so hard. Oh wait, I'll have to do the A string. I can just mute that with my finger because it sounds better anyway. Okay, cool, G. So by 20, I learned like 4 or 5 chords, and I had taught myself Good Night Now by Cheap Trick. And I was like, okay, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Sing, I can play this. And it's not to diminish how great that track is, but I said, okay, I can do this. So then I started fronting, and then I went through a thing where I couldn't be a drummer and a singer. In my mind, I had to be the singer, because I had never seen a drummer singing. That it just looked weird to me. And so,
well, the Don Henleys of the world they're Gil Moore from Triumph. There's very few examples, actually.
Gil and Donnie Brewer from Grand Funk.
But they're usually like one of several singers or a couple singers, something like that.
We're gonna let the drummer sing one.
Yeah, Peter Criss or whatever. Yeah.
But when I got the Ace gig, it was like, okay, and you have to sing all the Paul Stanley songs, and I'm like, are you joking?
I love that. That's like prerequisite. Like, it's not only do you have to play the drums, like you're playing like Anton Fig parts and some some stuff it's no joke, but we need you to sing like as one of the best voices in the history of rock, period.
Right, which I tried my best, but it was like, okay, I don't have to define it. Just put myself out there and let people tell me what they want me to do. And so I think, like you, what do you need me to do? You got someone to cover the harmony? Okay, cool. You need someone? I got it. Whatever you need, I'll just throw all my chips on the table and you guys tell me what you need. And so that's been good. But it took a minute to wrap my head around, am I a drummer? Am I a singer? And then I play drums. I also sing. It's like, okay, calm down. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. But I think like anybody, and you're like me probably in that sort of, you put yourself out there in a number of different ways, and you, whichever sort of one tugs you in whichever direction, that's where you go. If you had been tugged in the singer direction, you probably be doing that right now. It's the same, that's why I'm playing bass these days, because that's my strength in that department. But so when what is the timeline between, say, the Flames into Ace Frehley or whatever is that sort of, when did you get that thing around, like I don't want to call it a side guy thing. I hate the term side guy. I hate the term hired gun. I like supporting cast, whatever you want to call it. It's like there's always better words for it. It's kind of like, not to diminish that term, because I think it's actually something really noble about that term as well. But I think that when you go, you have to change your head entirely to kind of go, okay, well, what would it be like to play, all my favorite songs as a kid? Now I do them for a living. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I get paid, the fact that they let me do the same thing I was doing at 14 with the guy for real, and the smoke's coming out of the guitar. I mean, that, that's just, it's some days I'm working and it's great. And other days it's like, are you kidding me? This is my shot and you're paying me? I remember I got my first check and it was signed Paul Frehley, but I couldn't really read it, but I recognized the handwriting. And I'm like, who? Ace.
Oh, yeah.
He just gave me money? Like, shock me? Like, what?
So, I would have done that for free. Yeah. Don't tell him that.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think, the Flames was, I don't know, late 90s into 2000s. And then I went to LA 2002 and I was still singing, and then I was in bands and I'd be the drummer, but I'd have like so many opinions. And I think, you're just driving these guys nuts. You need your own band. Like you're not being a team player. You have a vision, but this is their band. So I went back to singing, and then 2011, I found myself doing a cover gig, and it was paying good money. We're actually playing in Vegas, and I was like, how did I end up? And this wasn't the vision. I mean, I'm making good money. I'm playing music.
Yeah. I was there too. That's a slippery slope. I know, because it's like, and I love Vegas. It's one of my favorite places in the world because I'm surrounded by musicians. But there is a danger when you start making a regular paycheck, especially if you're accustomed to not making a regular paycheck. Because I was, feast or famine is part of being in music. But as soon as you start going like, okay, here's Sweet Home Alabama, and you go home with X amount of dollars, and eventually you'll realize 10 years later that, you just kept playing Sweet Home Alabama and paid off your house and put your kids through school. But, I don't think you're quite cut out for that kind of world as far as, and I know I wasn't either. I didn't realize it was until the opportunity of Slash came along that it made me kind of go, yeah, I'm going to go and tackle this. So, but I'm glad that opportunity came up for you. Did you have those similar kind of like battles with yourself as far as like where you're making money, but it's kind of like,
Yeah, again, I think probably similar to you when it happens. And then you're like, wait, this is my life.
Yeah.
And it's good. I mean, if you're
it's a good problem to have.
Playing music, that's somebody's dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I was always aware of that, but I had to define it. And the way I defined it is I want to play these songs with the guys who wrote them.
Sure. Yeah,
that was the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was the moment of clarity, and actually quit that gig. The last night that we played there, Sunset Station, Dokken and Quiet Riot had played outside.
Right.
And then after, Frankie Benali, Chuck Wright, Sean McNabb, they all came in and we jammed.
Oh, so cool.
I sang and Frankie played drums, which was unbelievable.
Of course.
And then they called out Highway Star, and my drummer goes, he just hands me the sticks. He's like, I can't do this. And I get on the drums and Sean McNabb goes, hey dude, like I know him now, so it's so funny, but wait a second. He goes, hey dude, how you doing? I go, good. You're cool to play this song? I go, yeah, I'm fine. And he's
that's hilarious because he has no idea. He doesn't see you as a drummer at all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's Highway Star. It's not like you're going to play Highway to Hell or something.
Right. Totally. But that night I went home and I thought, okay, like this is what I said I wanted to do. And it was just a jam, but I just did it. And that's it. That, again, anything you do with Frankie was amazing. But like if you're playing a Zeppelin song and Frankie's on the drums, you're like, this is another level.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So what point did you, so I'm looking at that list of names, Beautiful Creatures, DuBrow. I mean, all these different guys you played with. How does that fit into your timeline? Like where did that all come down?
That was in the beginning. So Alex Grossi and I were playing in the Flames at the end. So
okay. I didn't realize Alex was a part of that.
Yeah. So Alex, Connecticut guy.
Okay. I love that dude. Yeah.
I needed a guitar player at one point. I saw an ad, and we lived about 20 minutes away, but we didn't know each other growing up. And I call him and he goes, hey, yeah, I'm looking for a band. I was just in this band, Angry Salad. We're on Atlantic. We got dropped. Yeah. I go, all right. I go, you want to meet at Cahoots? Which was a strip bar. And he goes, how about the Electric Blue? I just got my gold card there. I go, okay. He goes, I'll be by the pool table. I look like Joe Perry. I was like, all right, I think we're going to get along pretty good. So he went out ahead and he said he had gotten with this band and he's like, we need a drummer and we're working with Rick Rubin. Like, get out here now.
Okay.
And that was it. That got me out there. And then we met Joe Lestay at the Cat Club.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it started off doing Bang Tango. And then that turned into Creatures. Glenn Sobel, who'd done the first record, was having some problems with his wrist. So I stepped in and then he just didn't come back. So we did that record Deuce, which was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
was that your move to Los Angeles? Is that what brought you out there?
Yeah, that was like within a year. That was what was going on. And then Alex connected with Kevin, and then Kevin wanted to do a solo tour. So I went in and did that. And that, Kevin, did you know Kevin at all?
No, I never knew him. I saw him once here in Las Vegas, not long before he passed, and I saw him randomly at a Cars show when Todd Rundgren was out touring with the Cars, and we just I was like literally standing next to him, but it was a loud rock room. But yeah, I got a great deal of respect for that guy. He did a lot of great stuff.
He was great, and I just opened his mouth, and it sounded like Kevin DuBrow, 110% every single night. It was like, how is this coming out of it? Just was no compromise.
Yeah.
And so we did some touring with that, which was again to play Frankie's stuff, which I had grown up on. So there was only like Bang Tango. I was a big fan of them when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then playing with Kevin. And the thing that broke me was he goes, we're going to do the Bad Boys of Metal tour, which is Kevin, Steven Adler, Janie Lane, and Joe Leste. The same band for everyone. So I wouldn't play on the Adler stuff, but I play with everybody else. One bus, and I just said, I love Kevin, but I can't do this. It's too much madness,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's too much madness. So I went back to singing, and then, fast forward a few years and, went back to playing drums. And again, that was when I had realized, like, I want to be at that next level.
Right.
And I go, well, if I got in the room with Jimmy Page, would I want to sing or play drums? And I thought, I'd play drums. Okay,
sure.
Let's play drums. Let's do that. Let's focus on that. And so that was kind of the beginning. And then, within 9 months or so, I got in the Ace gig.
And now was that like a proper audition thing, or was that someone wasn't available and then you just kind of stepped in, or how did that all come about?
Scotty Coogan was doing the gig. He had quit, and he'd put out a press release. So someone called me and said, hey, he just quit. So I called everyone I knew, and Brent Woods, played guitar with Sebastian and Vince Neil, said, I know Anthony Esposito, who's the bass player. He goes, let me call Anthony. And I had the number. There's a long story behind this. I actually got the number from Robbie Crane, and Robbie's hilarious. And
he's the best.
Robbie said, just call and tell me you got the number from this guy. I go, but I don't know that guy, So anyway, Brent's like, I'll find the number. I go, I have it. And he goes, I'll find it. And I'm like, okay. And like next day, third day, he's like, I think I got it. I'll call him. And I just called Anthony. I said, Brent's going to call you, or did call you. I don't know. But anyway. And we had a nice chat. And 2 weeks later, I was in New York, and I played with just Anthony and Todd Youth, who was the guitar player at the time.
Okay, yeah, wow.
And we did like 3 songs, and I sang. And Todd was like so New York. He comes in, black hair, jeans. What's up, dude? Plugs in, turns up so fucking loud.
Yeah.
And it was at the Gibson showroom. So there's a Slingerland kit, which is cool, but they're small, and there's no mics on the drums.
Right.
And it's in the old power station tracking room, which is awesome, but the drums aren't bouncing off the walls. It's dialed in.
Right.
So I couldn't hear my drums, Anyway, 3 songs of that. I sang a couple, and then Todd goes, all right, cool. Nice to meet you, dude, and left.
Interesting.
And being an East Coaster, I was like, I'm good. Like, I don't know who's coming down, but for Todd to just play and then be like, okay, I'm out. I was like, that's cool. That's good. And then I got a call a couple weeks later, and that was it.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, and that must have been a trip when you're actually playing with the guy, as Kiss fans, and you and I we've gone extensively on these conversations a lot about doing that. It's like when you're playing and you're like you say, you're a pro, I'm a pro, but every once in a while you stop and wait a second. If Slash is playing the solo to Sweet Child of Mine, which we used to do, every once in a while I would stop and go, it would be a surreal moment. So doing it with Ace, which is even stranger because we have so much more invested time with the Kiss guys, as far as being children, essentially. And then and you're sitting there, and every once in a while you have that moment of like, hey, wait a second, when the thing starts smoking and all that kind of stuff. That's got to be a trip. Yeah,
it's his vibrato. They'll just be my monitor, and I'm like, that guy's good. I'm like, okay. That guy. Yeah, what he does.
He's from outer space. Of course he is. Yeah.
He's known for that.
So what how do things play out from there? Like, I know there's it's funny because I've known you for quite a while, yet I don't know your whole history, nor should I probably really. That's why we're doing this. But how does the Mr. Big thing play into all this?
All of my gigs I've gotten from jams.
Oh, okay.
All of them. So jamming at the Cat Club, Joe Leste. Then going to this jam at On the Rocks, which is above the Roxy.
Yeah.
Nobody there. I get up to play. The guy goes, "Hey, you sing too, right? Can you sing too?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we did TNT, and I walked off, and Billy Sheehan was there, and he goes, "Who are you? What? That was great. I got to get your number. I don't want to lose you." That's what he
Cool.
said. And then a year later, he called me, and Pat Torpey, their drummer, had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but it wasn't out. So he goes, "We might need some help. Pat might not be able to do a couple shows." He didn't say why. But can you learn 2 Mr. Big songs and then we'll just jam so I can tell the guys I played with you? And I said, yeah. So we got in the room and he goes, "So here's the whole thing."
So just you and Billy?
Just me and Billy.
Okay, wow.
And he said, Pat, our drummer, has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and we don't know if he's going to be able to play at all or a little, or we haven't figured it out, but we need a guy to do the whole tour.
Right.
So, part of my brain's like, awesome. And the other part of me is like, oh my God.
I know. Yeah, that's a tough
and it was
one.
emotional for him, and it's a little emotional for me to hear it. And then he goes, "All right, so let's play."
Wow.
And we played a Take Cover and Daddy Brother.
Okay.
No, we did Daddy Brother. And each song once, and he goes, "Okay, great. I'm gonna talk to the guys." He goes, there was one other person they were talking to. He goes, "But I think you're gonna be perfect."
That's great. Wow. So
that was my audition.
And you did how long were you doing that run with those guys?
So we did 5 years.
Holy cow. I love how it's kind of like, I think I'll be a singer, and then you're kind of like, nah, I'm gonna go back and play drums, and you end up in that's no joke. That gig is like, Pat Torpey's like a legend, you know what I mean?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a difference. We had a lot of similar influences, so there was common ground there, and as drummers we got along great. But he would do stuff I'm like, what the fuck is this? And there's one song, Colorado Bulldog, that sounds like one thing, but he goes, "I'm actually doing like this samba thing," and he showed me, and I said, we've been playing for a while. I said, "That's so cool. I got to tell you, it's probably never going to happen."
Yeah.
And
the Matt Starr version of that.
Yeah. He goes, "That's cool." He goes, "I just wanted to show you." But yeah, I mean, that was a whole other thing, playing with Billy, who's unbelievable, but he's not playing the way a regular bass player, and sonically it's not sitting where a regular. So I'm like, give me 100, 120 hertz, and I'm like, I don't hear the bass. I'm like, and then it's like, oh, it's up here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that was cool. But we went around the world a few times, played Budokan twice.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I've never played Budokan. That's so rad. Yeah. Those guys are massive over there, by the way. Because you always hear those stories. They're huge in Asia, and then you go, "Oh, okay." When you get there, and you're like, we drive by, and the Enormo Dome has a giant Mr. Big poster, and I'm like, "Oh, they're playing the Enormo Dome." There you go.
Yeah. We meet people in the airport, and they go, "Are you a band?" And we go, "Yeah." And Pat would always say, how everyone says they're big in Japan. He's like, "We actually are."
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. No, that's an amazing run. But and then are you doing is that like a full solid 5 years, or is it kind of like pockets of work happening throughout there?
It's pretty solid, like several months a year. I mean, 6 months, 3 months. We did a record in 2017, toured on that, and so yeah, it was pretty steady. It was great.
That's
and I tried. I don't know if you've ever been able to pull this off. I know a lot of drummers that sub out gigs.
Yeah.
And then they come back.
Yeah.
So I tried with Ace to sub out the gig.
Right.
I said, and when they offered me the tour, I said, okay, let me just talk to Ace first. I just want to. So I called him and I told him and all the, how much work and he just goes, "That's cool, brother. You got to do what you got to do. Who should we get?" And we talked about different people. And then he ended up getting Scotty back. And he's like, you come back in January and we'll get back to it. Like, okay, cool. And then he called me. I remember we were outside a baby store, like getting baby stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, so, the band's going good. I think I'm just going to stick with Scotty, because I don't want to be switching." And I was like, okay. Like,
I know.
It was like a breakup. And I was like, all right, but, bye, click.
Your childhood heroes breaking up with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but then a couple months later, he called me and said, I got a new record and I want you to play on it. So it was all good. It was just logistically, I don't want to switch drummers and, he's going to do this gig and then he's going to do that gig, which I totally, Ace deserves a band. And the old school guys, I think more than the new school ones this is my band.
Yeah, totally.
Like their name's on the marquee, but I want my band.
Yeah, it's always the risk you run, and I think it's an interesting thing to talk about that a lot of people don't think about is you run the risk of subbing out your gig that you might be handing it to somebody else. So
right.
It's, you have to realize that that's part of the thing. But, when you're looking at X amount of work with Mr. Big versus, maybe less work with Ace or whatever's going on, you kind of have to balance that all out. And we've all been through all that, but that's the nature of the biz.
It is, but I will say, because my tech Ange was with me with Mr. Big, but then he did all the Ace shows too. And there were, other than that first run, there were no overlapping dates.
Oh,
I said, every year after
tell me
year,
that
after year, I was like, oh my God, but it's all good.
But it is tough to make two things work anyway, and they inevitably will crash, and that's what ends up happening. But so you did end up playing on, which record is that you played on? Is that the?
So I played on, I think we've done 4 records. Space Invader was the first one. I did the whole thing, and then the next 2 I was on as much as I was around for.
Right.
And one of those was, we did, Manic Depression with Bruce, which was awesome. And then there's another one on the other record too, which had Bruce. And then we did Fire and Water and Paul.
Yeah, that's
singing. So that's cool.
And unfortunately, you're not in the video, which kind of.
I was not, because they were on tour, and it was like, we're gonna jump in here and do this thing. Paul's gonna show up, and we're gonna do that. So,
and it's one of those cool things where you're playing with, with one half of Kiss. You're playing with basically as many of original members as are in Kiss now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like.
Yeah, and we did, like, we were gonna do something with Gene maybe, and then the morning of the session, he goes, hey, Fire and Water by Free? I go, yeah. He goes, okay. He goes, well, go learn that. And I said, okay, got it.
That morning? You're playing it that night?
Yeah, that afternoon. Wow. Which he's
okay.
like, learn Fire and Water. I go, okay, I learned it. Now what? Because I love Free. So
yeah.
He goes, Paul's gonna sing it. I just talked to Paul. I go, okay, great. Wow. So then we did the tracking, and I said, so who are you gonna get on bass? What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I know who I want on bass. He goes, I don't know, maybe I might play bass, or maybe have Chris Wise. I'm like, okay, I love Chris, but what about Gene? I just kept pushing for Gene because it would be,
That'd be so cool. Yeah.
Gene, Paul, Ace, and me.
yeah. You'd be having this like dream gig of like your childhood for sure.
Yeah.
So what was I gonna say? So from there, did you kind of come in and out after that at some point, or did you have you been with Ace pretty much that whole period?
So I had landed in Vegas. I think I was going to do Raiding the Rockfall.
Mm-hmm.
And Ace called me and goes, hey, what are you doing? I got a Kiss cruise, and I just fired my whole band.
Oh, that's right. This is where the Nashville boys come into play, right. Whom I've all talked to on here before. That's why I have to have Matt on here. Yeah.
And been Jeremy, Ryan, and Phil are great.
And they were with Gene up until, that's part of this story, is that they were Gene's band up until.
Right. So then Gene and Ace that year were doing events together, and they had a tour. I think it was an Australia run, and then Ace was going to fly to Japan. Yeah. And Gene said, just take my guys. You're already in that, kind of longitude, like just, so he played with them, and how could you not like playing with them? They're like amazing, and they're all happy. It was just like, okay.
Yeah.
So, so that was it. So we did the cruise. And then after the cruise, last night of it, he said, cool. So, my wife would always say, cause he'd always say, are you playing with Mr. Big? Still playing with Mr. Big? And my wife would always say you're not busy. And I'm like, I know, cause I don't want to have that conversation where I have to say, not busy. Okay. Can you do this? No.
Right.
But things had ended with Mr. Big, and I said, hey, I'm not with Mr. Big anymore. He goes, okay, cool, yeah, because we got some more dates coming up, and it just morphed into that. So, but I would get these messages from people going, I heard Ace fired his band. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I said, well, that's fine, because I wasn't in the band when he fired everybody.
Yeah, I wasn't in the band that got fired. I'm in the new band.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And that's, I mean, that's really says a lot, because the new band, as you know, with those guys, Phil, Ryan, and Jeremy are, you know, three of the biggest Kiss fans on the planet, as well as yourself. So when it comes to like, you guys can really stoke that too, because you did that run playing with Gene on that run in Australia as well, right?
I played with Gene at a charity event. Gene
Oh,
and John,
okay.
yeah, but I've never.
Oh, that's
never
right. Was it a different drummer that went over with them to Australia?
It was Christopher, who plays with Accept. He did some of those shows. I think he did that run, and then there was another guy, I think, that's done some of the shows with Gene as well.
Okay, so yeah, but you're sliding right into the Ace Frehley gig is like into a warm bath. You've already been there. You know the gig, and now all three of those other guys sang and stuff too. So you know there's all those songs. But I know you guys probably do. You guys prod him into playing? Hey Ace, what about Save Your Love, or what? You're like,
yeah, there were some things that happened at sound check. We did one time we were playing Strutter, and he just showed up. He just got on stage and started playing the solo. It was great. We have not revisited it, but it was so good.
That's so cool.
It was so good. Yeah. So yeah, there's little things like that. And when we did the cruise, we did Dark Light.
Oh yeah, that's
Elder,
right. Yeah.
Save Your Love, and Torpedo Girl, which was a favorite. So yeah, we've gotten into some deeper cuts over the years.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about him, is he's not afraid to dig a little deep once in a while, especially getting into that solo album stuff from '78 now and all that kind of stuff. Right. That's a blast. So what is the let's talk about Minefield and stuff like that. So you're one of the first guys that I know that turned me on to the idea of like, hey, this guy's looking for a bass player. Do you want to play on this thing? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Those kind of little projects would come up now and then. And then you and Jeremy both reached out to me about, Brandon, hey, there's this, did you know Brandon, or was this another thing that came through Jeremy as well to you?
We met at an Ace show.
I see. Okay.
So, I mean, it was like, hey, dude, sounded great. Hey, thanks, man. Cool. And it was very brief.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. It was initially sort of like sing on a song, who's playing bass on this? Well, maybe I'll play bass, and it turned into this thing. And having, known you and knowing Jeremy, it was sort of like, well, look, if you guys are doing it, it sounds like a blast. And I was literally on the couch, it's like literally not doing anything at that point, because it was like probably a month into the lockdown where I was like, you can only watch so much Tiger King and whatever the hell else they put on us. But yeah, it's weird how you take on a project and you think like, this is fun. This is a fun way to pass the time. But the other day I listened through to the album. Like, I don't usually I'll often listen to like when the first pressing of something comes out, whatever I've done, I'll often just like listen to it in the car and be like, that's great. And never listen to it again. Cause it's just, it comes up in a feed once in a while on your phone or something. Oh, I haven't heard this in a long time. But yeah, I listened to it in its entirety and I was like, wow, this is really great. I really enjoy what it was and how we made it. It makes it even all the more of a story in that, I trust that, when you send your drum tracks over, they're going to be rock solid and we're going to be good to go. And I don't know if anybody really understands that, you're in California, I'm in Nevada, Jeremy's in Tennessee, and Brandon was in Kentucky or wherever the hell he is. Right. And you're literally making a record in 4 different states, recording your parts, sending it over, and everybody puts their things in, then sending it to Anthony in Nashville to mix. And then you've got a record, and it really, in a lot of ways, sort of opened my eyes, because I've done a lot of records where we're literally in the same room. You and me would be playing, staring at each other, and, locking parts up, especially as bass player and drummer. That's often very common to be kind of like, oh, you're going to do the kick drum there. Okay, great. But it really opened my eyes to a lot of how this can be done in the 21st century and during a time when we're really not supposed to be in the same room together.
Yeah, it was a lesson for me, because I've done remote tracks for years. Yeah. And yeah, you get stuff back and you're like, cool, sounds good. Or every once in a while, like, hey, if you need a mix engineer, let me know,
Yeah.
But, we're in completely different states. I only knew Brandon from conversations and texts, and now we're friends, as are you guys. But it was just like, okay, cool, this will be good.
Sounds like fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I listen back and I'm like, I don't know how it could be any better. I mean, I would have liked to have been in the room with you guys. But
Yeah.
okay. And for me, I had the experience of getting the demos. Maybe there's a title.
Right.
I think there was one song that Jeremy wrote that had vocals. I had not much, just guitars.
Yeah.
Not even bass. And okay, verse, chorus, got it. Okay. But then I get to hear them back, and it's like, it's like I never heard it before. And then I hear your parts, which are all amazing. I mean, just
thank
brought
you.
it to another freaking level. And I'd hear you start singing like Seventh Heaven, and I'm hands down. I'm going, please don't do a drum fill in the middle of his vocal. Like, okay, no, I didn't. All right, cool.
Yeah, I don't know if some of that just kind of happened like in a real sort of like, magical way, or if we just sort of like know how to stay out of the way of each other when it comes to, having done this for a minute or two.
Right.
But it really turned out great. And it's one of those things where, I guess when you go into something with no expectations, you're kind of like, which I kind of, in general, it's music. You kind of hope it's going to be fun. That's really the first thing, is it's going to be fun. Secondly, it's like, I trust you and Jeremy, knowing you guys. I love both you guys as players and really respect what you do. Brandon, he was coming up with a lot of the riffs and stuff like that. So the fact that it turned out as great as it is, I 100% am like, wow, I'm proud of this. It's like, that says a lot, considering it was just kind of a fun project to do. I mean, who knows if we'll ever be able to do anything with it live or ever get to do it again, but I'm really thankful we got the chance to do it.
I am too. And a lot of that credit goes to Brandon too, because
it does.
I've seen a lot of guys with an idea, and they have a budget, and they get some players, and then, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And he has just worked it. And so if anyone's watching this and you're trying to put a band together, or you have a band and you're looking how to do it, he just worked hard.
He did.
He
yeah.
just worked hard. And there was a label involved for a second. And then he just said, he detached from that, and just, he's doing the merch. He's coming up with the ideas. He's sending us the CD covers to sign, and he's letting everybody, and he's doing it,
He is, yeah.
And it's been really cool to watch.
There's so many hoops to jump through in this particular game that almost any of them will trip you up enough to be like, what's the point? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you can get disillusioned. And I think that thankfully he's very young. So he's kind of still got that kind of like, isn't this great? Like kind of like when you're young and you're kind of like, it's a magic factory. And then you got some older roadie guy going, I wish I was dead. You're like, what are you talking about? Isn't this great? Well, tell me about Black Swan now. We'll kind of, I'll cut you loose because I'll end up doing this all day. We'll start talking about, what was your favorite track on,
me, yeah.
But no, I talked to Robin not that long ago, and he and I were both singing your praises. Robin McCauley. So Robin McCauley, Reb Beach from Winger and Whitesnake. Robin McCauley, we should go back, from McCauley Schenker Group, and Jeff Pilson from Dawkin and Foreigner, and then yourself play in the group Black Swan, which I don't think has played any live shows of any sort. Have you?
No, that was kind of the one thing when that record came out. Again, all great players, so it'll at least be that good. But is there going to be a chemistry? And when I heard the songs, they had done everything. So Jeff had, I think, probably programmed some drums. So I came in at the end.
Because Jeff produced it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I came in at the end. So I heard the songs. I go, these are great. And then when the drums got on it, it just clicked.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, wow, this is really cool. So, again, no expectations, but I started getting calls from some managers I'd worked with, agents, people. And we had a couple things that were, one tour that would have been very cool. And it just evaporated. You know what I mean? So,
and that's because of COVID, I assume?
That's COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but there's another second record in the works.
Yeah.
And
same guys, same guys.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about that whole Frontiers thing is that in their ability to kind of put guys together like some sort of like fantasy football league thing and just go, why don't you kids go make a record? Here's a budget, go make a record. And you go, okay, I think it's really exciting that there's a little, place to go and be able to do that kind of thing. I think it's pretty cool.
It's been really cool, and to play with some guys that I grew up. We used to go see Kiss, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, and invariably YNT, Accept, Dokken, and Great White would be opening.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember seeing Jeff and watching Mick Brown and of course George Lynch, and it was just, and then I'm in there with Jeff, and it was funny because, Tooth and Nail, and then Under Lock and Key, like we played Unchained the Night at my high school variety show and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I would play something and then we'd talk about the kick patterns, and the things he would suggest were very Mick-esque. Like Mick had a great way of evolving the kick pattern over the course of the song.
Cool.
And so I go, right, just Mick, do the Mick thing.
Just tell me Mick Brown, I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was fun. But I think, like you playing with Slash, when you play with stuff that you're familiar with and you grew up with,
yeah,
it's fun for you. But I'm sure that the artist feels comfortable because they're like, feels like this guy gets it. And it's like, well, yeah, because I was playing along to the records. So
it's funny because Slash has said to me before, he goes, I don't really care if the guys I play with are Guns N' Roses fans. And I kind of go, I think you have to play with somebody who I think I understand that, it doesn't mean you need to be some guy who's played in a Guns N' Roses cover band or something like that, or the Kiss guys should play with guys who played in Kiss cover bands. But I think it really helps for people to speak the same language musically that you've been speaking and to have grown up with what you do or whatever it is. Because, I know for a guy like you or me to walk into any of the Kiss guys, if they wanted to do a gig, we would be great because we just know that language. We know it. We know every nuance of it. You know what I mean? And the same went for Slash. For me, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to do this stuff. Fitz and I were both, let's do this stuff, authentically and try and do it, as it should be played, as opposed to, what about a weird jazz breakdown in the middle of this? Why? Like that we're just going to ruin the song. It's like, what about some peanut butter in the spaghetti sauce? It's like, it's a terrible idea.
Not a good idea at all.
Not a good idea at all. Yeah. So what does speaking between you and I, it's so strange that, it seemed like a week ago, everybody was talking about like, well, by the time I finally have this up on YouTube, it'll be like, it'll be a totally different world, because it seemed like last week, everybody was kind of like, well, we're going to baby steps our way back into the world. And it's like, boom, tours are being announced.
Yeah.
Dates are being, everything's, it's normal town, except it's normal town times a gazillion. Like everybody's going on the road. Everybody's doing this. So what do you got going on? What do you got coming up? Is anything like, how's it looking for you as far as 21, 22, getting out on the road or whatever's coming up?
Yeah. So we got, Ace has a month with Alice Cooper.
Yeah. That's exciting.
That's September 18th to October 22nd.
That's that'll be a great tour, man.
That'll be fun. So, Alice has a great band. All those guys and are really super cool. So that'll be fun. It'll be nice to go out with another band, because Mr. Big and Ace, we never toured with anybody.
Yeah. Same with Slash. We have opening acts, but it's not quite the same as a co-headliner in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. We're working on the new Ace record.
Exciting.
So that's, that'll go through the summer. And
is that going to be a cover record, or are you even allowed to talk about that?
That's an original one.
Oh, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. So that's really that's it. That's been his.
Are you allowed to talk about who's going to be on it as far as like the band, or?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I mean, guitar player named Ace Frehley will be on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Breaking news.
This new kid called Ace Frehley is going to be playing. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big news. Blabbermouth.net. Ace Frehley plays on Ace Frehley album. Yeah. Okay.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that's very exciting. Well, you heard it here first. I can't wait to hear that. I'm really happy to see all these guys still out. Cheap Trick, whoever, still making music. I buy every single damn thing that comes out because I'm such a fan.
Yeah, I mean, the new Cheap Trick record is great.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So good. And that breed, that era, only they do that.
I know.
So there's new bands that love that stuff, and that's cool, but it's not the same thing, the sensibility, and for me too, the sense of humor.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. I never really thought about that, but Cheap Trick has always had a tongue firmly placed in cheek on their stuff for sure.
Yeah, and and it starts, like Cheap Trick being badass.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, second to none. And then let's have fun. Let's mess around,
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm really excited that you get out and play. I don't have any dates on the table myself, but I got so much studio stuff. I filled myself full of studio work because 2021 is going to be a total wash. You wait and see. A lot of my friends are saying to me in one ear, and other people are saying to me in the other ear, like, it's never going to be the same again. And you're like, well, of course it is. And I foresaw it happening, that when the door opened to creak, people were just going to like come crashing through it. So here we are now. You're going on the road. Everybody's going to be back on the road by winter. I'm hoping it's business as usual. It'll be a little bit business unusual because it's going to be hard to book a tour when, you got 50 holds on every tour, on every venue in the country and beyond,
Right. And is Guns, is this a long run for them, or?
Well, they got makeup dates till, because of all the stuff that got canceled during COVID.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I got stuff coming up, and I got a lot of my own stuff to do, which I'm actually really excited to do. And to be honest, I'm not in a hurry to leave yet. The one thing about COVID, or the lockdown, it's really made me kind of like, it really has to be something special for me to like want to leave my little house and my family and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's happening, and it's slowly, kind of coming around soon enough. But
no, it's nice to be home for sure.
It is. But I think, like everybody, it's like I was saying to somebody earlier, how you kind of feel like, you live like a pirate, but then you realize, I think I was only playing the part of a pirate. I think I actually like this retirement thing isn't so bad. But, talk to me about that next year, because 2022 is going to be crazy. Trust me. Yeah. But in the meantime, I'm excited to get to see you guys. I'm sure you'll come through Vegas, and I'll be there. I'll be there.
Can't wait. Yeah.
I'll be mooching off your deli tray or something.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Awesome. Well, please say hi to the family for me. And when you get back out west, or like you say, when you're out with Ace, I'm sure I'll see you.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll get on stage together one of these days again. That'd be a blast.
That would be fun. Yeah, that's definitely in order.
It's been too long. All right, man. Big love to you and the fam.
Yeah, you too. Good to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.